Hey, welcome back to another Reddit Stories video. This one's a little serious, could be a little triggering. Women who dated older men as teenagers that now realize they were predators. What is your story? Okay, here we go. Ready? As a kid, I had a friend who babysat a 35-year-old guy's young kids when she was like 12 or 13. He, the dead guy, started to romance her and convinced her that they were dating, but people just wouldn't understand. I do remember asking her if she had sex with him and what it was like. She said it didn't do anything for her, but I do it because he likes me. At the time, I thought she was really mature and knew that she wanted a life and parents would just try and boss her around. She moved after a couple of years of being with him, so it fizzled out. She is married with her own kids now, and they aren't friends anymore, but as an adult, I wish I could go back and explain to us that she was being abused and that it was predatory. Get the guy and put him in prison. I don't know the guy's name to look up whether he ever got caught. Second story. I had a couple of flings with older men. The longest, he was 31 and I was 18. I was more experienced than him and he wasn't so much a predator. I think he had some cognitive delay. But we were pressured into it by a friend in their 40s. And I feel that the more the predator than the guy. Ooh. I also had another instance where I was 19 and my friend's 45-year-old dad had been flirting with me and I was flirting back, harmlessly like sticking my tongue out cheekily. He then pushed things further. With things happening in the bedroom, not all the way, he went to the bathroom and I kind of snapped out of the moment and noped the hell out of the room. Good for you. Number 3. My first boyfriend when I was 13 and he was a 19-year-old. He was my first kiss. He was very sweet. And he never pushed anything. He wrote me a really lovely letter, too, but it was before everyone had mobile phones constantly. It wasn't sexual. I feel like I should add that. In fact, he said that he would wait until I was 17, just to prove that it wasn't about that. Legal age of consent in my country is 16. Looking back on it now, he absolutely was grooming me and just trying to earn my trust, but I didn't see it for that at the time. Number 4, I was 15 and he was 28. It's always like older men. I've always liked older men, but he was the oldest. I just thought he thought I was mature. I wanted to be adult so bad. I was flattered he liked me. Thank God we never had sex. That's good. Number 5 now? Next story. I grew up being bullied by all of my peers and quite a few of the adults in my life. When I started getting positive attention, it just felt so nice that I could do anything to keep getting it. Older men really loved that quality, unfortunately. Next story. I was 13 and he was 19. There was sexual conversations, but nothing physical until I was 16. When I look back, I wasn't really ready, but I was scared he'd dump me. He was my first kiss, first everything. Ended up having kids, broke up a few years ago after about 13 years together. I'm completely lost. I have no sense of self. I don't know what I like. My hobbies and likes were an extension of his. I took on all of his opinions. I missed out on my teens and 20s and now resent him for it. Everyone around me was warning me, but I was stubborn and wouldn't listen. I wish I'd listened to everyone around me, but I was like under his spell. My family and friends said I was under his spell. He always told me I was so mature, but I look back and I wasn't at all. We ended up growing apart when my opinions and thoughts started to differ from his, and often told me that I used to be such a good girl and that I'd changed. Worst mistake of my life. Wow. Someone replied with, I'm sure you feel lost, but you're doing better than you're giving yourself credit for. You developed your own opinions even when you were under that spell. You were stronger than you realize. Mutually exploitative relationships. They used me for validation they could only get with a young girl. I used them for dick and money and access to age-restricted products. Well, okay, at least we're honest, someone says. This is a very interesting question. It makes me think about some of the things that happened in my youth. I am so sorry for anyone who was manipulated as a young person. Things did happen to me, but I was terrified of the men and got away from them. Not that I was smart, just scared. It's safe to say that I had a really shit upbringing. Single alcoholic mother, no dad in the picture, no money, only child, etc. When I was 13, I had a sexual relationship with an 18-year-old. To be honest, I never thought that he took advantage of me. I was just happy to feel wanted. He never forced anything and didn't manipulate me. I had lots of sexual encounters with older men as a young teenager. Some bad, some good. By the time I was 16, I had discovered the joys of drugs. I left home at this point and had a full-time job, living in my own flat and paying my own bills. I got together with my cocaine dealer, who was at 36. That sorry excuse for a human being was manipulative, physically and mentally abusive. All to be expected, really. I was with him for 6 months before I became his worst nightmare. I trashed his house, broke his nose. He used to call my mom if I was losing my temper to come and stop me kicking off. I was with him from the age of 16 to 19. He tried to be a predator, but he didn't succeed very well. Thankfully, he's dead now. I've been clean from drugs since I met my husband at 21, who is also 10 years older than me. But I'm 34 and have 43 and have 2 great kids and a very happy life. I do look back and wonder what the hell I got through, I got through my teenage years alive. Sounds like you did it though, so congratulations. I was 14 and met a 23-year-old guy online. My mom let him stay at her house and he raped me several times. I thought he really loved me. As an adult, I'm absolutely horrified. I was 16. He was 25. Turned into a full stalker situation when I became less interested with law enforcement involvement and the whole thing. This one says 30 male. I don't know why you limit this question to women. It is all too common in the gay community, but also I dated a 23-year-old woman for 3 years, starting when I was a 13-year-old boy. We keep in touch to this day, and she has apologized and said she felt bad about it. I also learned more about her childhood that was full of abuse. See, I think that's a very good point. You gotta, obviously it says, women, but it happens in every community. People are manipulative bastards. People got married right out of high school when I was a teen. They were so much more mature and ready to be on our own then. I never considered anyone older than me when I dated to be a groomer. The man I married at 19 was 8 years older. What's the point here? Okay, so there's a different take there. I was 16. He was 23. He started off with an extreme amount of charm, which soon turned into violence and narcissistic controlling behaviors. He lied about everything, especially to do with his reputation. He was desperate to be perceived as a cool party guy with lots of friends who will do drugs. I do mean desperate. His reputation was everything. I was typing all the things he did to me, but it was too much for me. I'm overwhelmed. There was blood and sexual assault involved at the same time he was going to court for publicly beating some guy while drunk. And the way he made himself into some sort of angelic victim in the courts needs to be studied. He literally would shake his shoulders and butt, smile and giggle as if that were a little child doing a dance. And the softest, cute baby voice he had. It was absurd because we'd go back to his house and he'd start screaming. He did this childish act whenever he wanted something to go his way. If someone knows what this is about, please tell me, as I'm genuinely curious. He was an adult man shaking his butt and giggling noises while going to court for beating a man so horrifically he went to the hospital. He terrorized me to the point I had to change phone and emails. He came to my house unannounced with gifts in front of my mom. I was too scared to turn him away. My mom was pretty deep internalized misogyny, and my safety has never been a priority over a man's feelings. He harassed me to the point where I had to wear sunglasses everywhere in public, and I almost cut off all my hair. Eventually, I was in a situation where I could move houses. He finally had no access to me. But almost 15 years later, I moved back to my original home due to COVID. And guess who shows up at my front door? At first, I didn't recognize him. He looks like a greasy pedophile from Chris Hansen's show. I said, "How can I help you?" He said in the baby voice I immediately recognized as, "Hey, are you blank?" I felt my facial expression go into disgust and every cell in my body went to fear. I said, "I don't want to talk. Bye." He looked at me as if I was the evil one and closed the door. As I closed the door, I noticed anger in his hands and thought he was going to hurt me again, but really it scared me because I lost the key to the screen door at the time, so he could have just come in. This was a horrific experience that haunted me for a very long time. My friends called the police for me, and we made a report. My country isn't really famous for taking women's safety seriously, and the AVOs aren't recommended because your chance to get murdered increases. So I just have to hope he leaves me alone now? Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot. I dated a 40-year-old when I was freshly 19. Does that count? I'm not sure he was a predator even now. We dated very briefly, were never intimate, and he broke up with me very shortly after we started dating. He had kids my age and older. Laugh out loud. Although not, now I'm suddenly wondering if he broke up with me because I wouldn't be intimate with him. Damn. Wait. Yeah, who knows? I will never understand the draw of an older person gets from dating people much younger than themselves, 10 years plus. Just the generational differences along with trying to keep up with a younger person's lifestyle sounds exhausting. Practicality. It wasn't a super big age difference, but looking back, it was a red flag among a sea of red flags. I was 19, he was 25. He worked with my best friend and went through her friends list and sent friend requests to every single girl on her Facebook. I was about out to delete the request when I vaguely remember that she mentioned this guy sometimes, and then stupidly accepted. Before we started dating, we talked on Facebook and seemed actually sweet and charming. Then we started dating. He took me out on 3 separate occasions where we actually ate food, one of which was to meet his brother, who paid for our food. Another was a diner for breakfast. On that day, towards the end of our meal, a girl and a guy walked in, and we said we needed to leave because it was his ex. Apparently, a judge told them that they needed to stay separated and never be in the same area again. Now, I realize that was just his way of saying she had a restraining order against him. I had never done anything sexual before in my life, and obviously was new to giving blowjobs. His idea of helping getting used to them was to force me all the way down on his dick and hold me there for a few minutes before allowing me to come back up. To this day, I hate giving head or having a guy even touch me when I give him one. I wanted to try anal, but he didn't prep me and used lube as spit and said that's how you do it. He hates wearing condoms and said I needed to go on birth control. He rubbed his dick up and down on me without a condom on, but I supposed to meet my parents. He was supposed to meet my parents on 2 separate occasions, but never showed up and never texted me because he got scared. Afterwards, I learned that on these 2 occasions, a mutual friend was in town and they were fuck buddies. Guess what they were doing? After I broke up with him, he dated another friend of mine, and when she tried to leave him, he pulled a butcher knife on her. She ran out and had some friends go back to the house while he was at work so she could get her things. That is a scary, horrifying situation. I'm glad you're out of it. Wow, that's just a lie. I had a 33-year-old man tell me he would wait for me to turn 18, and I thought that meant he was caring. I was with him for 2 years until he dumped me for another girl who was about to turn 18. Turns out his entire family was pedophiles. He was estranged from his sister because she left the family because her dad raped her with all the time and no one would admit it. Ugh. Damn, like I said, these are deep. I was sexually assaulted by a close family member when I was 3 years old. As a result, I developed a compulsive sexual behavior disorder. My father also had a porn addiction, clearly, and had his porn mags hidden all over the house. By 8, I had been exposed to so much. When I was 9, we had a desktop and dial-up. I quickly found AOL chat rooms. This was in 1999-2000. I found another chat room called Just a Chat. Due to hormone and body changes, I gained a bit of weight from that time and was bullied heavily. My mother was also the kind that would tell me I was beautiful if I lost weight. Because of this, I think I needed a lot of validation. I spoke with so many clearly creepy and predatory men, rolling my eyes through so many boring and same sexting convos. I also got attached to the good writers. At 13, I was with an 18-year-old. We sexted, had a lot of phone sex, made out a few times, but then he ended things because of the age difference. His dad made him, actually. I was crushed. At 14, my current online boyfriend got a bus to come stay with me for a week. He was 27. My parents let him sleep in my bed. Of course we had sex. My mother was so angry and disappointed in me. I was made to feel like it was all my fault. After he dumped me, and I was convinced that it was because I was just fat, in hindsight, he probably freaked out. After that, Mom started me on diet pills. Dad walked out while I was asleep one night, and I never heard from him again. We moved to a much more metro area, and my issues got way worse. Seducing older men became almost a game for me. One guy cheated on his fiancée with me. He was 24, and I was 15. My mom knew all these men, and the more beneficial and pleasant they were to her, the more they were welcome into our home. Eventually, I started realizing that all of this was so fucked up when I was about 16. I went to live with another family. That's a whole other can of worms. I reconnected with the 18-year-old, who is now 21, I was with before, since I was 16, and he was more open to it. I heavily romanticized the relationship. But when my mom came back into the picture, and at 17, we were engaged. My mom heavily influenced and pushed. She even bought the engagement ring. As I kept maturing, I knew even that this wasn't okay, and I ended things as soon as my mom was hospitalized for an extended time. I was still 17, still engaged in many interactions with adult men online. The oldest was a 32-year-old man who waited until I turned 18 to make his move. He also had me convinced to run away with him. He wanted to take me away from shitty life. We met once, and he forced himself on me. Now in my 30s, I look back on my life and feel horrific rage, shame, guilt, and horror. Pure horror of what I was allowed and what was allowed, what I allowed and what was allowed to be done to me by my parents. As a step parent, seeing my stepkid shine in entirely new ways brings light all my life. I wish I could erase all those memories. Seeing them for what they truly were haunts me on a daily basis. Edit. Since the sentiment has been expressed several times in the comments, I just wanted to add, I am okay. I went to NC, in contact with my mom at 19. The struggle it was unreal, and I almost lost my life to the mental illness in 2014. 10 years later, with lots of therapy and proper treatment, I have a degree, a job I love, and a husband I adore that dotes on me and tells me I am beautiful and loved every day. I have 2 stepchildren I adore and would go to any lengths to protect them. I got to break the cycle. I'm still healing wounds and processing things even to this day, but I have a great support system and can smile and say that I am grateful every day now. That's good. I'm happy for this person. They were able to move past all the trauma and find what they needed to find, and I hope things continue to go well for them. I was 14 and he was 21. At the time, I thought it was very romantic and Lolita. I outgrew him and broke up with him when I was 16, but only when I turned 21 that I realized how creepy it was. Like at that age, you know full well 14-year-olds are children. Yeah. I was sexually abused by my father and my sister because she was a young child and also being abused too. That fucked with my brain. I took attention where I could get it. Now I wish all those fuckers were in jail. 5 or more cases of statutory rape, at least in my young teens. Wow. That's 18 and 27 here. Dated for 2 years and split up because my parents were strict and his parents wanted him to marry within their culture. He went on to marry someone else closer in age who reminded him of me. Contacts me occasionally, it's almost 2 decades later, to remind me that for him I was the one that got away. I'm always fascinated by the fact that he hasn't yet realized that I don't feel the same way. For one thing, I don't remind myself of me. He would drive present me nuts. I never realized till my granddaughter said something to me. I was telling her that I was 19 and I dated a guy that was 35 years old. He asked to marry me over and over again. My granddaughter mentioned that was creepy. He even came to my wedding. Just women? Because I think you're missing out on a lot of stories here. Yeah, I do too. It was my best friend's dad. I was 15. He was 32. Needless to say, I have a lot of trauma from that experience. He was very controlling and abusive. That's usually where it starts. When I was 17, I dated a guy who was 19. He turned 20 by the end of the relationship. He constantly teased me about my age because I was so young. And it was unusual for him to date someone much younger than me. Or it was usual. We had a 2.5-year age gap, which I didn't think was that big of a deal since we both went to high school around the same time. After breaking up, he started dating a girl in a year below me, and after her, an even younger girl. They always stayed over 18, but always just 18. Yeah. Yeah. I was 16, female, and dated my manager, 24, male, at my part-time job. My parents knew and knew his age, but they had no issues with it. This was around 1996. That reminds me of a story that I'm dealing with right now. As not dealing with personally, but I have connection with at my work, and it's uncomfortable. When I was in high school, girls were constantly dating guys who were like 10 to 25 years older than them. In grade 9, I had a crush who was 14, and I had this crush who was 14 and with a 25-year-old. In grade 10, my 15-year-old friend was with an 18 or 28-year-old. Good Lord. By grade 12, it seemed like half the girls in my class were with guys in college, university, and this one girl I dated briefly, then started dating a 30-year-old. I remember finding it very annoying at the time because I felt like I couldn't compete with these guys. I was living at home as a kid and working at Starbucks for minimum wage, and these guys had their own apartments, cars, etc. I felt bitter because I wondered why they had to date my classmates instead of women their own age. I also wondered if I could date high school girls when I was in college and uni. Now that I'm older, I'm just flabbergasted by the thing. Why is it so common? Why do people put up with it? Of course, I never dated a high school girl after I graduated high school. None of my friends did either. It's not only gross and weird, but also potentially illegal, depending on the exact ages in question. I hope it's not as common now. It is. I was 15 in the early 90s and met a guy who claimed to be 19 while I was a cashier at a grocery store. My female friend, who was working alongside me bagging groceries, took an interest in my brother, who claimed to be 18. They had a nice car. They had money. They took us out on dates and bought us stuff. They would pick us up at our high school at the end of the school day and bring us to the apartment, where they would let us order all the pizza we wanted and give us a bunch of money to go splurge on soda and candy at the corner store. They also gave us weed and brought us alcohol. They turned out to be 25 and 26, and we discovered this when their apartment got raided because they were selling crack out the back door. Nothing bad happened to us, but we learned a lesson. That's good. It's weird, but it never felt like abuse or anything unusual. But I remember a year or so ago, I was posting here on Reddit, and I was putting my 2 cents in, and someone said, "Then you were groomed." My initial feelings were anger, like, no, I wasn't. But then it hit me, the truth of it. I was so conditioned that even now I make excuses for these guys. Spent so much time being one of the guys that I was missing the disrespect. I just brushed it off, and now I read these posts from younger girls and ladies, and I'm baffled. I saw just how I'd been treated and trained, then it was just floored by my acceptance of it. And I'm glad that younger women are now being shown that it's not really okay. They can stand up to it. Yeah, that's about the only good thing is sharing these stories, is hopefully someone will be able to understand it and see it and save themselves or save someone else. Flipped roles. I was a 16-year-old boy and was seduced by a 28-year-old nurse. She had sex with me, shared me with her roommate, and then ghosted me for a couple of weeks into it. Really messed me up. Wasn't ready for that. I don't think anyone is ready for that. Yeah. My wife's first time was with her boyfriend. She was 15 and he was 22. She doesn't feel like she was taken advantage of. In my mind, it was rape. But she does suffer from a lot of sexual difficulties. I believe this may be the cause, but I'm not an expert, so I'm just speculating. Yeah. I was 17 and he was 28, and my boss at high school internship at the local paper. He totally groomed me by taking me out at night for reporting, and then would suggest dinner at a nice restaurant. I was poor and thought that was so fancy and adult. Eventually, he started kissing me and stuff, and we started having sex. I was so in love at the time. He made me lie to his friends and say I was in college and got me a fake ID, but they knew and gave him a ton of shit about it. I broke up with him when I went to college. Now I'm 48 and horrified at the behavior, of course. So it's very sad to listen to these, to read these, because I've seen this so much. And it always starts out, not always, but most of the time, and mostly because most of these stories are from the female's perspective. They just want attention. They have seemingly not great home lives. Their parents, when they do have parents, both parents there, they seem to enable it in a lot of cases. And that is so sad. That is just, it's devastating, because it's a lifetime of trauma and guilt and remorse. And I'm really sorry for everyone that had to share their story or that felt like they needed to share their story. Hopefully things will get better. And the more people become aware of it, though, I guess that's one of the good things. You share these stories, other people can become aware of it, see themselves, see somebody else in it, and maybe get out of it and get on to a healthier life. Anyway, thank you for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.